Today on Dungeon Crawlers, we get the details on the hottest new Dungeons & Dragons related Kickstarter, the Immersive Battle Maps by Yarro Studios. 32 pre-built, customizable, and dry erase safe maps to enhance your gaming experience. All that and more on Dungeon Crawlers.
This episode of Dungeon Crawlers Radio is brought to you by Geek Girl Realty. Are you looking for that fortress of solitude or a cottage in the woods? Geek Girl Realty can help you out. Check them out at www.geekgirlrealty.com.
Dungeon Crawlers.
All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Dungeon Crawlers, where we're here with Tanner from Yarro Studios to talk about something really awesome. If you play D&D, you play any type of role-playing game that is medieval awesomeness, this is the book for you.
Let's not even... So I'm not going to lie, I'm really excited about meeting with Tanner today, because I saw this book online. And I don't play as much D&D, but I play other board games. And so I'm always on the search for good maps. Maps that I can actually use for my miniatures.
Well, I mean, this is something really cool. So it is on Kickstarter right now. Days left. Jump on it. But most importantly... Friday,
right? It ends Friday.
Yeah, it should end Friday. It's going to be like in 2 days after this airs.
The cool thing about this is you know, like when I'm playing D&D, I have my mat, I have my dry erase markers. I have to draw out a ship or a cave or something like that, or an inn. You have that in the book. You can just plop the book down. It's already there for you. You have these really cool cling stickers that you can put on there so that you can add other things. You know, like for those of you that can see over here off to the side, we got a boat and we got little boats, which is just really cool. I don't have to draw that up. It's there and available for the players to look at and do. So where did this idea come from? Because it had to germinate from somewhere.
Yeah, Dan, you hit it right on the head. The very first time I ever played Dungeons & Dragons, well, okay, so I always had this like internal desire to try it.
Yeah.
And this is a lie, because that's not the first time. The first time I ever went was in high school, and I convinced all my football buddies to go play. And I had to pretend that I didn't like it because they all hated it. And I was like, God, this is not fun. And we went to Dragon's Keep, and we totally ruined some random people's game. They were totally nice enough to let us play, and I feel so bad. But from that point on, I always knew that it was something that I would like. Mm-hmm. So the very first time that I actually played and tried to understand it was at the local comic book shop. I knew that they played like the Adventures League on Saturdays or Wednesdays or something. And so I went on one of those days, and I had my character sheet ready to go, and I had my miniature, and I was so excited. And we sit down, and the dungeon master starts explaining that we have been hired to clear this dungeon of kobolds.
Okay.
They've taken hold in this keep, and I'm like, yes, I'm so excited. Like, I'm this orc barbarian. Like, okay, I go into a barbarian rage before it even starts. And he pulls out this gridded mat, pulls out a dry erase marker,
and then starts doodling
and
away.
Draws the first room. And I was like, this is so cool. Okay, so now I have a visual, and he draws it pretty quickly, right? It's a circle, and it's kind of a cave entrance, and he goes, okay, so you have an exit to the south. You guys can't really see down that way. You have an exit to the west, and you got an exit behind you to the north.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like a computer game, like choose your own adventure, like point and click adventure. And so I'm like, I speak up, and I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go that way. And he pulls out a squirt bottle, starts erasing the whole thing, draws the next room. Like 20 minutes later, we're in the next room, and there's still nothing in there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and he's like, okay, now there's only 2 exits. You can come back the way that you came, or you can go straight. And I'm like, is there anything else in the room? He's like, no. And I was like, this is miserable. This is not. There's got to be a better way. And luckily, I decided that I wasn't going to let this be my only experience with D&D.
Yeah.
Because I'd seen Community, I'd watched a little bit of Harmon Quest, and I knew that there was so much more to it.
Yeah.
I wanted to dink around with my friends, you know, and we weren't. We were drawing maps on a whiteboard. So that was the precursor to this. Then I played D&D for 3 years and realized that something like this needs to exist.
Yeah.
No, so that's where it came from.
I mean, that's I know exactly your pain.
I think we all know your pain. I remember my first map, and it was, okay, circle, rock here, rock here. And I was just like, I'm looking at 3 circles on a piece of paper here. What else is there? Like, that pain.
You don't know if you can hide behind it, or if you need to stand on top of it, or if it's a column that's going all the way to the ceiling.
Yeah.
And then to make it more immersive, the DM's going to have to sit there and draw barrels and tables. Otherwise, you'll find yourself saying, is there anything I can hide behind? Yeah, there's a table. Okay, flip it over. Well, it's actually too big to flip over. It's like 30 feet long. Mm-hmm. When in the book, you go to the inn and you can see, let's see, where's the inn?
He's flipping through massive pages of awesomeness. Some of you will be able to see this. Some of you just have to hear the pages flipping.
If you want to see some samples of these, go to the Kickstarter. They've got samples of they've got some detailed samples of the maps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, that's really cool. It saves valuable time for the DM. He doesn't have to describe it. It's there. It's visual. They can see it.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, but like it saves time, table time.
Yeah.
But also for the DM in preparation.
Yeah, because
he doesn't have to spend 3 days drawing maps.
That was the other thing. So 3 years playing Dungeons and Dragons. The last year I got the DM's manual, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and started diving into dungeon mastering a little bit. And time again, I would prepare this awesome campaign that my friends didn't care about at all, right? The very first time I remember setting up this huge train battle, I went into my computer on Illustrator and I did each train card, and I'd set treasure chests, and I went through and did, okay, this is in this chest, this is in this chest, this is in this chest. And they got on the train and they looked into the next car and it was filled with zombies, and I had a reasoning for that, and they punched out the window and jumped out of the train.
Yep.
And I spent like 4 hours preparing every single piece of the train.
I can feel your pain.
They went straight to the bar. They got drunk and got in a bar fight. And I had to whip out a piece of paper and draw a square.
Yeah.
And so the book covers that. So you can still prepare an awesome campaign, but as a dungeon master, it doesn't force you to shoehorn anything.
Yeah.
Right? You know what? You guys want to go to a bar?
There's a tavern.
There's the bar. That's 5 pounds of book hitting your table.
Yeah. No, there is a great comic, Dork Tower comic from years ago. I'm going to age myself. Anyways, it's really awesome because a lot of it you see, they're talking about, you see guys that they're playing D&D, and you see the DM saying, all right, so you slay the zombie lord, you killed the vampire, and it just keeps going off, the werewolf, the dragon, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, yeah, it was awesome. This was the greatest campaign ever. He's like, but you forgot to save the princess. I mean, that's a typical D&D game. It seems like you spent all this time preparing, have this awesome, you think this is going to be the greatest adventure ever. We're going to go save the princess. We're going to go do this. And it's like the first encounter, we're not doing that.
We're not doing that.
We're gonna go slay trolls over, in the north.
What was that random NPC that you mentioned earlier? He's our new best friend, and we're gonna go spend all of our time with him.
Yeah.
So I actually had that happen in a campaign that I was DMing. We were the party was called to the Queen's birthday party with the sole purpose of protecting the Queen. She had been given death threats that an assassination attempt was going to happen. Her royal guards or whatever heard through the different networks that they have that there was going to be an assassination attempt at her birthday, so she was hiring these adventurers to protect her. Well, they get to the party. They're trying to come up with a game plan, and the cleric, I think, suggests, what if we disguised one of ourselves as the queen, kind of as a decoy? Oh, great idea.
Yeah.
They sneak through the castle. They find the queen's room. They spend an hour in real world time taking turns trying on the queen's dress and then going outside and trying to convince a guard or a servant that they're the queen. And they decide, because they were arguing to see who was going to be the best queen, who was going to be the best drag.
Yeah.
Quite literal, drag queen.
Yeah.
And finally the rogue goes out, rolls like a nat 20 on his deception, and this guard is bowing at his feet. And so he goes back and he goes, they think I'm the queen. This is perfect. They go downstairs to find that the assassination attempt had happened. It was successful because there was nobody there to protect her. And, but the rogue did make a quite devilish queen there for a little bit.
Maybe he becomes the queen after that. I mean, with a 20 deception.
Yeah, everybody was probably really confused. I think we were just dying laughing at that point that they had completely neglected their sole mission.
Their mission, and
it's so easy to neglect things. Sorry, going back to the map. Like for me, it's always easy to neglect what is also in the room, because for me, like every time we go into a new room on any of our games, I'm always trying to remember everything. I'm jotting down little notes because we've got the map sometimes. Sometimes we have a map. Sometimes we just have to use our imaginations, and it's hard to actually be able to recall every little thing. And I remember Dan's actually slipped me up once or twice saying, "You do know that there's one more guard right over there, right?" I was like, "No, I did not. I did not know."
At least I was being nice to remind you, because you could have been, "Hey, I'm gonna go pull the fire alarm," and the guard's watching you the whole time.
See, theater of the mind is fun, and there's definitely some added benefit. It's a lot. The first games that I really started loving D&D was all theater of the mind.
Yeah.
Our DM, we didn't bring minis, we didn't bring anything. You were pretty much always in range of what you were trying to do. If you're trying to hit the giant, if you're trying to, and it took out movement. And so as my first introduction to D&D, it was amazing. Because it was like we were just like making things up together, and it was awesome. But the more that you play, you start to dive into the player's handbook, and you realize there's total rule sets for pushing.
Yeah.
But in theater of the mind, when would you ever push?
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously your listeners are going to be like, well, yeah, there's plenty of situations. But what I wanted to create is let me just go to one map here, one of the many in here. I wanted to fill them with kind of hazards. So I have a map in here, the Dwarven Forge. We've talked about it a lot on the Kickstarter. You can go and see it.
Well, and one thing I just noticed, with the pages, you had some dry erase marking, so you can even write in things.
Yeah, that is also exciting.
Oh yeah,
so
we'll totally get into that. But if you're here, I mean, I think maybe that camera looks like it's got a wide angle. They might be able to pick it up.
Yeah.
But you got it. I'll describe the scene. It's an Undermountain Dwarven Forge, and the forge is powered by giant lava pools. And what's cool about a map like this is, you could draw it and spend all that time, or you could just open it up. You have a Dwarven battle, and now when you're fighting and you get backed up against the ledge, don't do damage. Just push them back 5 feet. They're sitting in a pool of lava.
Yep.
And vice versa for the DMs, you now have a way more interesting combat.
Yeah.
Because there's hazards around you.
Well, not only that, as you get closer to the lava, if you're not a dwarf or someone that's used to that, you're going to be taking heat damage. Your armor is probably going to be heating up. That's not going to be comfortable. There's tons of different hazards or even negatives effects that they're going to be taking. Like that bridge there. If they're fighting right next to there, I could be. There's a whole bunch of fun obstacles that could be and disadvantages that could be coming to mind.
Obstacles and disadvantages. That should be your middle name.
No, as a
Daniel,
DM,
the obstacle and disadvantage DM.
That's as a DM, right, you think of, okay, how can I trip my players up? And if you're like your back's pressed to lava, you're not used to that heat. Your armor is heating up. It's like, all right, you're going to get disadvantage for every attack swing because you're literally almost on fire. This armor is heating up to a point that is scalding your skin.
And so I chose the name very carefully. It is called Immersive Battle Maps because it wasn't something that I realized when I was creating it, but it has allowed us to be so much more immersive for the players because of things exactly like that. Mm-hmm. It creates worlds that exist, and the dungeon master doesn't have to describe every small detail just so that the players can throw clay pots at the enemies to distract them. They're right there, right? Yeah. The clay pots are there. The lava hazards.
If they're not, you've got the little add-ins that you can actually throw in there.
Yeah, so the last map is actually just a blank...
Courtyard,
yeah. It's just dungeon floor, cobblestone floor. And this was a Kickstarter live video that I did. The lamination's kind of coming off on this production sample. It was a handmade sample, and we've already taken care of that in China, with our manufacturer. But we did a Kickstarter live where we just we worked our way through it as if it was a 1-inch grid map that I despised so much in my earlier times. But the stickers allow you to do it so much faster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like the difference between a book and, we'll say, a movie. You know, when you're writing the book, you have to describe what is around that. You know, whether it's first person or third person, you're describing the scene. You have to do it in detail so that the reader can pick up on all those things. When you're doing a screenplay, you don't have to do as much. You know, it's just like
leave it to the production managers.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is walked into a fire station. You know, a lot of and then they do the rest because visually they're
enter
gonna be able to
left
do
fire
that.
station.
Yeah. You know, but in a book you have to describe the fire station, the scents, the smells, the looks. So I mean, this is pretty much that. It's like a script, you know, and you're watching the movie. You don't need to describe all those little details because they can just look right there at the book and say, okay, there's a fire pit. There's a tent.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or there's a magic circle.
It allows you so much more time to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Which is why we're here in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the Dungeons and Dragons manual. Like you could play without having all the manuals, but as soon as you bring more manuals in, you have so much more world to play with. And with this, it's a little imagination booster. You know, it helps them to become more involved. And so I like how you.
I like
described
this new trap for Scott.
Oh, so in
wonder why we haven't played
in the
in a while.
Kickstarter Live, the trap we showed them is kind of a wall-mounted spinning saw blade.
Does it eject out?
When we did the Kickstarter Live, I put them on these columns, and so they would spin around the columns every turn. They had their own initiative. They'd do a full loop. So if you were caught in that loop, you were taking saw blade damage.
Taking notes.
Yeah. So what's really cool is the color form stickers. When I originally came up with that idea, I almost pitched it as a joke.
Yeah.
To my D&D friends, and I was like, wouldn't it be so funny if it was like one of those children's books that you give to your kids to occupy them for hours, like the Barbie dress up where they grab the dress and the hair and I remember my really good friend Buddy was just like, that's amazing. That has to happen. And I was like, well, I was joking. He's like, I'm not. That needs to happen. And the Kickstarter community has absolutely latched on and like even convinced me. And obviously, in hindsight, it's so awesome and it's so fun.
Yeah.
So one thing that we did with the Kickstarter community was we came up with a list of 150 spells.
Yeah.
And created spell stickers for them.
For every 150 different spells.
So I think there's 150 stickers on the dungeon dressing page, but the spells I think is 50. I think I misspoke, but the spells are giant. So Circle of Death is like takes up the bottom half of the spell sheet.
Sweet.
And so you
Fireball.
cast Circle of Death on yourself. You can pull off that giant 8-inch by 8-inch sticker and set it down and put your character on it. And now that area is
A circle of death.
Yeah, you keep track of your spells. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, it is.
That's incredible.
I like that setup. I already have an idea for it. Like,
Stop it.
You have a
Stop
pedestal in the middle with whatever you have to get, and the columns are close enough that the saws actually
Tanner, we're not
interconnect
gonna-
over the top, and you have to duck and weave.
We're not
and
having
try
you on
to
the
get
show
that thing.
anymore. We're done. We're done.
Here's another good one I used to torture my parties.
There's a batatorial arena in there.
So
It's
this
even
is
better.
the hedge maze.
Nice. Hedge mages are awesome.
I put my characters in the middle of the hedge maze and they started their challenge.
and they have to get out.
They had to locate 4 objects hidden in the hedge maze
Oh, even
before
better.
this sinking black cloud of impending doom was slowly sinking. So they had a set amount of turns, which meant that they had to split up in the hedge maze, and I had owl bears and iron golems hiding throughout. So again, it adds just totally different levels to combat that you don't get unless you're going to draw out an entire hedge maze or
Yeah.
are the what's your favorite author?
I have so many. That's not even a fair.
I don't know if
answer.
you can actually say on the show, right? Because
It's just-
Or
my
if you're the
most
Dan
favorite-
Swenson
my-
of
no.
storytelling.
let's just say J.K. Rowling.
No, I mean my favorite is Bob Salvatore, R.A. Salvatore. You know, Dritz and stuff like that. So this would work perfect for his stuff too.
Yeah.
Except for I'm looking at this hedge mage and I'm thinking, oh, there needs to be gelatinous cubes and rust monsters.
And what I also like is,
There you go.
I mean,
Yeah.
for people who think that this takes away from, like, getting this would take away from their games, you still have the option of doing the complete independent custom games. You have the back page, you have other pages that you can actually still customize, but this is something that's nice on the fly, especially when your characters go completely off, or you can use it as a base to create something.
Well, and that's the nice thing about D&D is if you don't like that, then don't do it. I mean, there's so many different rule sets in the game, and even Wizards of the Coast has said, if you don't like that rule, throw it out. You don't need to do that. This is just like a bunch of guidelines. I mean, if you don't want to have the book and that visualization, that's okay. It's awesome. If you want to make things a little bit more simpler for you, yeah. I mean, instead of describing how the hedge mage looks and everything like that, you can just open it up. Here's our hedge mage. You know, here's the chest you have to get to, and so on and so forth. They can kind of overall see it. Or maybe you don't put those down because you want them to try to wander around. But that's the fun. You get to choose what you're going to do, and this does make the game a little bit easier for you and your job because you don't have to sit there and write out this long description of everything.
I think everybody's going to be really excited with it. I've made games. We've talked on the show before of other board games. And after playing your board game 100 times, you kind of get burnt out on it.
Yeah.
But you still love it, right? It's your board game and it's fun. I've never stopped needing to use this. And I love to use it. And the back pages have obviously come in more handy now that my players have been to the same inn multiple times. But something to get excited about is the next book we've already started working on with our artist.
I was just about to ask.
So the next book is a full 64 page, but each map, 32 maps of a dungeon that is basically a choose your own adventure. So in the sense that page 1 is the entrance to the dungeon, there's also other pages with alternate entrances to the dungeon. But on each page, you open the first page, there's a door here and a door here, and this door would take you to page 2. This door would take you to page 6.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So the whole dungeon is cohesive and connected, and the first page will show you kind of the layout of the dungeon if you wanted to make photocopies or whatever. But it's also going to come with a little DM's guide that will tell you what is in each room and how they connect. And that was something that we learned with this book was, there's nothing wrong with a module here and there, and you could still be just as creative using a module, and a lot of people love it to be able to. So the next book will come with some form of module guide. You could still totally use it to your own heart's extent. The next book's gonna have just a room of just treasure, spider webs. We have a chessboard a la Harry Potter as part of the dungeon. You can just get creative and fun with that, and then just tons of generic passageways and.
So what I'm hearing you say is that this is only the first book of many, or at least 2. Are we thinking a series of books down the line, or are we?
So yeah, obviously it fits such a niche in that you just kind of keep it in your back pocket. The first book's common locations, but I have so many fun ideas, and if we can start attaching modules and campaigns to them, then there's no limit. I mean it's only a matter of time before Wizards of the Coast starts to do these books with their campaign modules. Yeah. So what's interesting is the first book actually has everything that you need to run Curse of Strahd.
Nice.
Because I just got done running Curse of Strahd, and the biggest pain in my butt was having to find the maps.
Yeah.
They print them in the book, but they're smaller than your hand.
Yeah.
And so you either need to redraw the crypt when you're helping that chick with her dad's dead body, or you just buy my map book, you turn to the crypt page, there you go, it's done. Yeah. So in the future, so we have the dungeon book. We're also working on another book that's called Environments.
Okay.
So it's going to be 30 pages of just environments, swamps and snowfields and lava. That one's actually going to come with a module we're writing called Potions and Poisons. It's going to be a super in-depth guide to using potions and poisons and creating them in 5e. So the sticker sheets will be all the different plants and materials. And then a lot of people on the Kickstarter want a sci-fi book.
Nice.
So as of now, there's 4 books planned. But they're so fun to make.
The sky's the limit, really. And
we also have other ideas. As soon as the bigger companies rip us off, hopefully we have. Because you can't patent protect a book like this.
Yeah,
right.
You have to run quickly.
Yeah,
right. And but we have so many other ideas that are just as cool and just as innovative that are gonna bring D&D into the 21st century that I think people need to get excited about.
But that's the thing. Even if the big companies do it, you guys are the first. You guys are the name in this book.
I think I think we could do the first 4 books this year, which gives us quite the runway. We've already been talking to the biggest distributor in the U.S. for D&D stuff, and so the Kickstarter obviously is a great place to get the product. It'll come with the stretch goals. A great place to pick and choose what sticker packs you want. But your local comic book shop should have it by Christmas.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So jump on the Kickstarter now to get it before Christmas, or wait till Christmas. That's your choice. I say now.
Well, and there's incentives for the Kickstarter backers. There's the 2-book pledge comes with sticker packs, and it's like $20 cheaper.
And you can also like pit the 2 books together. I saw in the Kickstarter, right? So you can have 2 books like on different pages or even the same pages to make an even bigger map.
Yeah, if you put the 2 hedge mazes together, you now have a gigantic hedge maze. There's the siege on the castle wall and the open field. There's the boat, and one of the stretch goals was just a page of just water, which I think is going to be fun. You'll be able to figure out how to use that. And so that's
So many ways to drown me. Thank you, Dan.
No.
But speaking of ideas,
But there are Krakens.
There are Krakens.
There are.
That would be a good sticker pack.
Yeah.
People don't like monsters because they want to save the minis, but something like Kraken, like it's kind of more hazard than it is monster. You do.
Well, it's almost land. It's like a piece of land that you're fighting.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a dwarf that needs to be tossed onto the Kraken.
Is that just like that is like the rite of passage for any medium to small player characters? You have to be thrown.
Yeah.
At something.
Even being a medium-sized character, I've been thrown and lugged around, used as a. So
I've jumped off of things.
So we were on a flying ship. I was doing a charity game. I was an old sea dog named Lem. No, Cod. Lem was my buddy, like super old. And my wish, I was granted a wish that my beard would be long and mighty and indestructible. Couldn't be broke. So I had this massive beard. Like I would wrap it around my head, use as a turban.
Nice little helmet. That's awesome.
But at one point, we're in this flying ship, and these harpies are coming, and I use an axe. I use a big old battle axe, and so I run, jump off, throw my beard to my buddy, and go, "Lem, grab my beard!" And I'm flailing around off the side of the ship, just spinning around with my axe out, just destroying these harpies with my indestructible beard.
If you're listening, you're probably not on the fence of whether or not to play Dungeons and Dragons, but if you, for some reason, are listening to Dungeon Crawlers and are on the fence as to whether or not you should play this game,
they're probably
that is the reason.
Well, no, you get to be creative. You get to do stuff that you don't. It's a great outlet. How often do you get to go trudging through a cave, destroying goblins in real life? It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
Flying on a carpet.
Or flying on a carpet, jumping up the side of a flying ship, attached, someone's holding onto your beard and you're killing harpies, the list goes on and on.
My daughter holds onto my beard. Does that count?
It does, but
does she spin you around?
But is she killing harpies?
She tries.
Yeah.
She tries.
She tries them.
But that's the fun, and it's creative. It's a way to get your your creative outlet out. That's where I started writing, was through writing modules and adventures, and then that's just expanded onto writing novels. And a lot of these other fantasy authors out there, when you get down or talk to them, they did play D&D in the past, and that kind of fueled that and got them to a point of, hey, I could make a story out of this. That's really, it just seems to be kind of the common denominator, and it's fun. It's fun to sit down with a group of buddies and play this game, have some fun for a couple hours, slaughter some goblins or rats or whatever, and at the end of the day, you have some awesome stories to tell. Remember that one time when your gnome drank a potion of giant strength and held the ceiling up and we all escaped? That was awesome. Yeah, but I lost an arm. Doesn't matter. It was still awesome.
You regrew it in 2 campaigns.
We got you a potion. It grew back.
Or metal arm.
Yeah, or you got a
Whatever.
cool
That's
metal arm.
That's D&D, or
Yeah.
just no arm. You just play with no arm for the rest of the campaign, and it's fine.
Yeah, it's cool. You have really cool stories. Even when someone screws up and fails, it's still an awesome story. You know?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you remember that one time you rolled that one, and we were in the middle of this massive army, and you were trying to convince everyone you were the king. Yeah, that didn't work. Yeah.
Well, I had one time I was trapped under a boulder, my character, and I wasn't pinned, but I was stuck because the majority of the weight of the boulder was just next to me, but I couldn't get out.
Okay.
And so my party was going to all assist in lifting up the boulder, and the other was going to pull my arm. And he rolled a 1 on their strength check as he pulled me, and that is the first time my character has ever died. Was getting smashed by a giant boulder. But I think we're kind of winding down to the end.
Yeah.
What I would add is I've had so many ideas to make D&D better, and I've been able to build this one. I spent about $2,000 before the Kickstarter even started, and that was like all I had spent up to that point. And so what I would say is, like, if any of your listeners are sitting on the fence as to whether or not they should like follow their dreams, it sounds kind of cliche, but I've always wanted to like do something for D&D.
Yeah.
I would say do it. It's worth it. And the only difference between me and them now is how many times I've tried and failed.
Yeah.
And again, that sounds super cliche, but it's true. It's like the one stat that I have against them is that this is like the 50th project I've tried to launch, and it's at $500,000. And so I would say the faster you can get to 50 projects, the better off you're going to be. But if you're sitting on that idea, just do it.
Yeah.
And
well, no, I mean it makes sense until you actually try. I mean, if you fail, you learn something.
Every single time that I've failed, I've learned something.
Yeah.
And the reason that the Kickstarter has the success that it has, and maybe another time we can get into how to run a successful Kickstarter campaign, this is like my 5th campaign that I've been involved in. I took everything that I learned from the first 5. Sometimes I was a marketing intern, just watching. Sometimes I was product design, helping where I could. But every single time there were mistakes that were made, and I've been able to avoid the majority of them and have just seen amazing success.
Yeah.
So to your point.
Honestly, Tanner, I think it would be awesome to have you on the show just talking about how to run a Kickstarter.
I could totally break it down in the simplest way to make it seem so possible and doable on like no budget. Obviously, you have to have a good idea.
Yeah.
But there are services out there. I built, just to kind of tease them a little bit, I built an Instagram up around this product in 4 months to 13,000 followers generically. Is that the word, generically?
Yeah.
Meaning I didn't buy followers, meaning
Right.
I get engagement at well above 10, 20, 30%. I have a post that I did that has 8,000 likes. That's more than half of my followers are liking my post. And there's a trick to do that very quickly. And then I was able to turn that Instagram into an email list. And I was able to turn that email list into $10,000 on the first day.
Wow.
Funding the first day and starting this snowball effect of funded in 24 hours, a little bit of publicity here, a little publicity there, and not having to spend anything outside of that.
Well, that really seems to be key, especially with Kickstarters. When people see, oh, this is funded, I'm not going to have to worry about, is it going to fund or not? At least in my mindset with me, if I see it's funded, I automatically jump on it because I don't have to worry. So I think a lot of people are that way. It's like, they're on the fence, but if they see that it's funded, they know they're going to get it.
Well, it's also the fear of missing out. Like if nobody else is jumping on, you're like, well, maybe not.
Yeah.
But if everybody's jumping on, you're like,
Yeah.
it's at $500,000. It's there for a reason.
It starts that snowball effect. And then one other thing we could get into at a later date is just like, one thing I think I did really well with this one was social stretch goals. And there's a correct way to do it, I think, because in other campaigns where I didn't have them, for example, in Dungeon Derby's campaign, one that I was a part of, we were shared on Facebook 7 times. That's it.
Oh,
Wow.
Within the first 2 days, this map book was shared on Facebook 100 times. If it got shared 100 times, it unlocked a map. And so everybody was
sharing it,
incentivized
yeah.
when they back it to just click a button and share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have days left. Jump on, because this is awesome. It's going to speed up your game time. You don't have to describe everything. Maybe there are some scenes you're going to want to, but this will give it for your basic common areas. Like you can see right here, there's this beach area. You don't have to describe that. It's already there. There's a wrecked ship and everything else. You have the stickers to add on more details for yourself.
This is just a camp that we made. It's not part of the book.
It's really awesome. It's going to be simple. And again, it's just going to level up your game. So with that said, check it out. Join on the Kickstarter campaign, because it's only going to help these guys out to bring out more awesome, great content. And with that said, we'll catch you next time.